right? I'd never done it before, and I really worked hard at it, trying to persuade people to randomize patients rather than treat this way or that way. And it was a bit tough because I was a pediatrician. I was training in pediatrics, and I was working with neurosurgeons. And neurosurgeons, I don't know if they're the same in this country, but they're very sure that they're right. They're convinced that they're right always. And so the idea of getting them to randomize was very difficult. So anyway, I tried to get recruitment off the ground. And then I got completely exhausted. And I had a friend who's another pediatrician, and she said to me, she said, "Ian, you know, you're a bit depressed, you know." And I said, "What? Do you think so?" She says, "Yes, I think so. Yeah, I've never seen you so exhausted and miserable." And I said, "Oh dear, that's not very good." So on the way home that day, I cycled home and I stopped at the chemist, and I went into the chemist and I wrote myself a prescription for Prozac. And you could do that then. You can't do it anymore. But I prescribed myself Prozac and then went on a holiday, a yoga holiday, right? So I burnt out, and it was marvelous being burnt out because you start to look after yourself. And I went on a holiday, and this is a yoga center in the south of Greece. And this is where you practice your yoga in the morning, and then this is a little taverna. I mean, that's like a sort of a pub or izakaya or something. And so you do your yoga there in the morning, and then you'd go down to the taverna and have your breakfast. And I was sitting here, and maybe I was still looking miserable. And this guy there, I met this guy. He was there on the yoga course as well, and he said, "You're looking a bit, worried. What are you thinking about?" And I was said to him, "Oh gosh, I've just been given all of this money by the Medical Research Council to randomize 20,000 patients in a head injury trial, and I don't think I can do it. It's exhausting. I'm tired. I don't think I can do it." And he said, "Well, tell me about it." And I started saying, "Well, we have to randomize this and that." And he said, "Oh, I can help you with that." He said, "I can help you. I'm a professor of marketing, and all you've got is a marketing problem." And I said, "Really? You can help me? You can help me do the crash trial?" He said, "Yeah, sure, I can help you do the crash trial." In fact, and he did. In fact, I went back to London after this, and we got a small grant for him to help us work on the crash trial. And he was a professor of marketing, and he said, "Well, look, it's a marketing problem, like any other problem. It's very similar to, so when you're marketing a product, you have to build brand values, you have to plan the product and the marketing, you have to make the sale, and you have to maintain engagement. This is the same if you're selling Coca-Cola or, I don't know, Mitsubishi televisions or whatever you're selling. The principles are more or less the same." And he said, "Well, look, what you're doing is a selling problem. You have to sell your randomized trial to the world if you want them to do it." So we used this approach to marketing the randomized trial. We said, right, first of all, we've got to develop a brand. We've got to have something that we've got to have brand values. Then we've got to gain legitimacy, and then we've got to show that this thing is worthwhile. So let's do that. So it should be very easy for academics to do this, to build brand values, because we've got such a wonderful thing to sell. We're selling not the building of knowledge for the public good. So, we designed logos, and we've got our brand values are very good values. Scientific rigor, patient benefit, collaboration. And we started realizing that these are actually easy things to sell. You know, when you're selling Coca-Cola, it's very difficult because it's just sugary water, you know. But actually, and that's hard, you have to be really clever to know how to sell that, but actually scientific rigor, patient benefit and collaboration, those should be easy things to sell. And we got good collaborators, World Health Organization, Lancet. We said we're going to publish in the Lancet, London School of Hygiene logo, but it's somehow back to front. I don't know what's happening there, but gaining legitimacy and prestige. Now, we made some mistakes here because there's two ways you can gain legitimacy. There are no doubt there are leaders out there in the world, right? There are people who are considered leaders in the field. But they come in two types. There's Stalins and Gandhis, right? They were both leaders, but they were different kinds of leaders. Stalin was a rather authoritarian leader. He killed millions of people as well. But Gandhi wasn't. Gandhi was a different kind of leader, a sort of leader who leads from the back. In neurosurgery, we made a bit of a mistake. Initially, we started working with a more Stalin-type leader. I made a mistake. I said, who is the most famous neurosurgeon in Britain? Maybe in the Britain or Europe. And I invited him to help us with this trial. And he turned out to be rather authoritarian. And on subsequent trials, though, we've always managed to find Gandhis. There's lots of people who are more like Gandhi, who are quietly supporting you from behind. And so be careful when you're looking for leaders. Try and find collaborative leaders, people who lead from behind. And then signaling worthiness. So we invited people to take part in this global trial. This is the Ch2 trial. This is the sort of letter we send out to people. Say we write to people personally, inviting them to take part. We tell them the trial is supported by the World Health Organization. We say it's an international collaborative effort, that working together we can achieve much more than we can working alone. That is just so true. That with these collaborative trials, you've got to explain to people, and they know, that actually you can do your own single center trial with 20 patients, but it's actually meaningless. But if you join together and we all put our 20 patients in the trial, then we can build something that's much better than any of us could have done on our own. And then we tell them, look, we're going to publish this in the Lancet. I mean, we can't guarantee it, but we tell them that nevertheless. We're going to publish it in the Lancet, and it's building on success. And when you write to people like that, they want to help you. They just want to help you. And we don't have authors on our trials. We call our trials don't have authors. One of the things we've realized is that you can do almost anything as long as you don't want the credit. As soon as you want to take credit for it, it all disappears. But if you don't want the credit, you can do almost anything. And so we have the Ch2 trial collaborators, we have the team is the authorship. And at the end of the paper, we have a long list of all of the people who did anything. So if you collaborate on your trial, I was talking about the Ch3 trial yesterday, and there were people in the audience who participated, and their names. Some of their names were on the paper, not all of their names. Some people, we're limited. What we find is we're limited by the journal about how long this list can be. So we sometimes have to make choices. So if you only put one patient in the trial, we can't guarantee that your name will go on the paper. But if you put quite a lot of patients, your name can. So you build something that's that people care about, and you try, and then you try and make taking part as simple as possible. Simple things are easier to do than complicated things, so you try and make the trial as simple as possible. And we try to do global trials, and so we try and overcome language barriers. So if you were a Japanese hospital and you wanted to take part in the Ch2 trial, we would send you a Japanese version of the protocol and all of the materials for patients in Japanese, of course. We would find out when your ethics committee meets. We would prepare the documentation for your ethics committee and you would receive an envelope with the ethics committee application filled out that you only had to take out of the envelope and send it to your ethics committee. Sometimes we try and find out how many copies they require. So we try and do all the work, or all the boring parts of doing a randomized trial. We try to do that for you. So we try and do as much as we can with the import. One of the really difficult things with big global trials is getting through customs. So we have people who are really good about how to get your drugs into the country. Sometimes, we get problems where the drugs are held in customs for a long time. And we try and, respond rapidly to any questions that people have. Then you always get resistance. People always tell you, what's a problem with your trial. And what we find is that people, the same complaints come up over and over again. So what you find, you get really good at answering them. So if someone says something about the trial, then you work on an answer, and you work on it really hard because you know you're going to be giving that same answer maybe 200, 300 times. And you practice the answers until they work well, until you can explain why what you want to do is worthwhile. So you simplify everything. And then you have like a marketing plan. This has changed over the years. We used to make presentations at scientific meetings, but now we don't do that anymore. We find that when people go to conferences, they're too busy focusing on other things, and so we don't talk about our trial at conferences. We have our own meetings. When we invite people to our own meetings, they're focused on this issue. The issue is the trial, and not all of the other things. Like when people go to conferences, they're so busy meeting their friends and going to doing lots of other things. So we have our own meetings, we have national collaborators meetings. The collaborators spread the word by, word of mouth is the best way of promoting the trial. Of course, we have a trial website, we write journal articles, and we basically say to the world, look, we're doing this trial. If you can help us, we'd like to work with you. And lots of people want to help. So, if you simplify everything and invite the world to help you, they will. And then you've got to sort of, make the sale, so to speak. You've got to get people to buy into the trial. And one of the things that we realized quite early on is how to run meetings. Now, this is a meeting about the trial in Georgia, and this is the Georgian National Collaborator. She's leading the crash trial in Georgia. Now, when we started doing trials, I would go to Georgia and talk to the Georgian people, to Georgian doctors, right? Now, the interesting thing about presentations is the person who remembers most, the person who will remember this presentation most is me. The person making the presentation almost gets the most out of it. They're more likely to remember what's been said because they said it. So if we want if we want doctors in Georgia to know about the trial, let them present the trial to you. So now we completely turned things around. I would go and talk about the trial in lots of countries. Now I never do that. I go to different countries and people talk about the trial. People present the trial to me. And of course, she's not going to want to make a mistake, so she'll read all about the trial. She'll study it, but she'll make sure that she's not making a mistake. She'll translate it into Georgian, and she'll explain it to all of her colleagues in a way that they can understand, which we couldn't do. So we completely changed the way we work. We don't talk about the trial. We ask people to talk about it to us. So this is Jorge Mejia, who's the Colombian national collaborator, talking about the trial to a group of Colombian doctors. And of course it just works really well because he's gaining status and prestige from being the Colombian national coordinator, just as the Georgian national coordinator gets status from presenting the trial in Georgia. And so we have lots of these coordinators all over the world presenting the trial. And then we've got maintaining engagement, ensuring positive moments of truth. I'll explain what that is in a moment. Providing frequent positive reinforcement and just building it into the routine. So moments of truth, positive moments of truth. Things always go wrong in clinical trials, right? So things going wrong is sort of just it's just normal business, right? You can't expect things not to go wrong.